Hello, I'm Game Retainer, and in this video I'll be going over some late game tips and tricks for 7 Days to Die. Now before we get into this, I want to cover a couple of things real quick. First, these tips aren't solely for end game. You can use a lot of these tips throughout a playthrough. That said, I feel like most of the tips in this video are geared towards late game play. The other thing I want to mention is that this video is aimed towards those who are in the late stages of one of their first playthroughs. If you are a veteran player, then hopefully you'll find something useful in this video, but as I said, it's aimed towards lesser experienced players. Now with that out of the way, let's dive straight in. Leveling up during the late stages of a playthrough can take a pretty long time. Now I'm not going to cover all of the XP boosting items, although I will get to that in an upcoming video. I will go over a couple of great ways of getting tons of XP during the late stages of a playthrough. First is to farm Vultures. You can farm Vultures during Horde Night for tons of XP. To do this, you'll need to be able to craft blade traps, or grab them from trap bundles. You'll also want to put points in advanced engineering so that you get XP for trap kills. Then build a structure within your Horde base. Something like this. Nothing too tall, as sometimes Sky Turds do like to go for the walls instead of making their way up onto the roof. Then set some blade traps up on the roof, go inside your little building, and jump on a vehicle when Horde Night starts. Driving a vehicle during Horde Night will spawn in weird spitting vultures, and they give lots of XP. If you want to grab the resources from the dead vultures, then use scaffolding so you can harvest their corpses through the bars before they despawn. Keep in mind that you will still need to be able to fight off the Horde, but if you set things up right, or you're playing with friends, then you can sit on a vehicle and just start racking up the XP. Farming Screamers can also be pretty lucrative for gaining XP and possibly some loot bags as well. Most players know that heat attracts Screamers. Once you reach a certain heat level, there's a chance for Screamers to spawn. During the early stages, one Screamer will spawn, but during the later stages you'll summon 2 Screamers when you generate enough heat. Each Screamer can only summon zombies a handful of times, but they also have a chance to summon another Screamer. Provided that you have the right gear, you can sit back and let the zombies come to you and just pick them off as they arrive. After you've generated enough heat to summon a Screamer, there is a cooldown period before another one will come. However, that only applies to the chunk that you're in. If you take something like an Augur and just keep tapping the button to turn it on, you'll summon Screamers pretty quickly. Once you've summoned a Screamer and dealt with all of its friends, move over to another chunk and repeat the process. Moving on. Junk Miner is a worthwhile investment during the later stages of a playthrough. Now, I understand that this might not be something for everyone, but if you play like I do, then you'll need lots of cloth. For me, cloth is one of those things that I just run out of, constantly. Now you can make a cotton farm, but that takes time and resources and it gets a bit boring to harvest. So instead, I would recommend investing in Junk Miner. When maxed out, you'll get 100% more resources from things that contain cloth and plastic. Once maxed out, if you use a chainsaw to take down a king-size bed, then you'll get more than 30 cloth. Things like military outposts become much more lucrative as there are lots of tents around that you can break down for cloth. And with points in Junk Miner, you'll get lots of it. Moving on to looting. Once you unlock tier 6 missions, you probably won't visit lower tier POIs all that often. There are quite a few low to mid tier POIs that have loot that's pretty easy to grab. Take the Town Hall for example. It's a tier 4 POI and the main loot is located on the roof. If you build a path up to the roof, then every time the loot resets you can just drop by and grab the loot. This is a pretty good way of stocking up on items during the later stages of a playthrough without having to put a ton of effort in. Make bases near large towns. Doing this gives you a couple of benefits. The first and most obvious one is that you'll have multiple places to spend the night. But aside from that, leveling up during the late stages of a playthrough, as I mentioned, is a bit of a grind. One great way of gaining XP is to upgrade blocks. If you spend time building new bases, you'll start racking up lots of XP. As of the latest version of 7 Days to Die, players can now have a total of 5 active land claim blocks by default. Depending on your map size, it's possible to have a base near most of the major towns across the map, which is pretty good for looting. Use a bone knife when harvesting crops. It's fast swinging and it uses very little stamina. This will help to speed up the farming process. Having a big farm is great, but harvesting gets pretty boring pretty quickly. So, use a bone knife to make things more efficient. Mark working vending machines on your map. Vending machines restock daily. While all trader compounds will have working vending machines, there are plenty of POIs that have the chance of containing a couple of working vending machines as well. Cans can't be crafted by the player, but certain cans are required to make some of the late game foods, so being able to stockpile them can come in pretty handy. Not only that, but you'll also find buffs like sugar butts, rock busters and eye candy. These can't be crafted by the player either, and they do offer some pretty decent buffs, so they're worth picking up. Have more than one ranged weapon on your tool belt. This tip is more for those who like to dive into top tier POIs regularly. Melee weapons like the stun baton with the repulsor mod are great for crowd control. However, if you really want to tear zombies to shreds, then for the most part, ranged weapons are the best option. The biggest downside to ranged weapons, aside from gathering enough ammo, is the reload time. Weapons like the auto shotgun and the M60 have pretty lengthy reload times. Even once you've maxed out your preferred ranged weapon skill set and equipped the bandolier mod, reloading can still put you at risk, especially when trying to complete tier 6 infested clear missions. While it will cost a reasonable amount of resources, having 2 ranged weapons reloaded and ready to go can come in very handy. I like to have the M60 and Desert Vulture on my tool belt, but even if you wanted to have 2 of the same ranged weapons on your tool belt, then you can use one as a failsafe for those situations when you don't quite have enough time to reload your weapon. This next one isn't really a tip as such, but I feel like it needs saying anyway. Don't get too comfortable. Yes, this is painfully obvious, but the amount of times I've died because I felt like I conquered the game is embarrassing, to be honest. Diving in headfirst into top tier loot rooms is a good way to die, even if you have great armor, lots of bullets and several stacks of first aid kits. A few unlucky hits is all it takes to land yourself in hot water. For example, a broken leg in a difficult POI makes things significantly more challenging. It's always worth going in with an element of caution, or at least know your way out. If you've seen any of my playthrough videos or streams, then you'll know that I'm being a bit hypocritical here, as I tend to run in guns blazing and hope for the best. But the best way for survival is to be cautious. Fill all mod slots. Mod slots will give you a boost to damage output for weapons. Even things like the Rock Breaker mod will give you a boost. So if you haven't found the mods that you're looking for, just throw something on anyway. There is one exception. I did mention this in a recent tips and tricks video I did, but the Silencer mod will decrease your damage output. However, once you've completed the Urban Combat book set, that decrease will go. Also, no matter what weapon you're using, try and put a Rad Remover mod on it. This mod stops radiated zombies from regenerating their health for 90 seconds, and it's pretty good. If you use a lot of electrical traps, then consider investing in a solar bank. Solar banks can't be crafted and they are very expensive to buy, but they're a worthwhile investment. You will also need to buy solar cells, which are also very pricey. If you are very lucky, then you can be awarded a solar bank bundle from traders. These contain everything you need to set up a solar bank. Keep in mind that they don't work at night, but if you hook things up to a battery bank, then you'll be pretty set for power. If you don't really use traps or you don't mind gathering shale, then solar banks probably aren't going to be very necessary for you, but for those who need lots of power, these are pretty great. Almost every player will have ended up in a situation where they're about to take a shot at the zombie and then suddenly the zombie changes direction and starts zigzagging their way over to you. Well, there's actually a reason for that. The way that the zombies were programmed means that they only run straight in cardinal directions. So if there's a zombie directly north of you, then it will run straight towards you. But if there's a zombie that's slightly northwest of you, then it will zigzag its way to you. By knowing this, you can position your hold base to make sure that zombies come directly to the path you've laid out instead of randomly turning, causing you to miss your shots. The next tip is for boredom. Now, I love 7 Days to Die. I mean, obviously, I made a channel about it. That said, the late game, in my opinion, gets pretty boring after a while. When I get to this stage, I start hunting for rare items. Taz's axe, books and schematics that I'm missing, and depending on the season, the candy cane weapons, are tricky to get. They don't really serve much of a purpose, but if you're a completionist, then hunting down everything can be quite fun. Speaking of being a completionist, if you like to complete the challenges, then the two most time-consuming challenges, in my opinion, are the Kill 50 Demo Zombies challenge and the Mining Gems challenge. Thankfully, the amount of gems you need to mine has been reduced from 50 to just 20 of each. This will still take a while to complete, but it's considerably less time-consuming than it used to be. Killing 50 demo zombies can also take a considerable amount of time. If you accidentally set off a demo's boom boom patch and it goes bang, then it won't count towards the challenge. I think it's at around game stage 147 that you'll start seeing demo zombies in the wasteland, but even then, if you're playing alone, you won't see them all that often. While you can drive through the wasteland at night to hunt them down, there are a few POIs that are guaranteed to have demolition zombies. These include the Ostrich Hotel, the Navasgain Athletics Complex, and the Demolition Site. The more difficult POIs that contain demolition zombies can be given out as trader mission locations. This is pretty good if you don't mind double dipping, because you can kill twice the amount of demolition zombies when completing a mission. I'm going to finish off with something pretty obvious. If you want to move your forges, you don't need to smelt everything back down into their components beforehand. What you can do is just break the forge. Yes, you will need to craft another one, but during the late stages, you're going to have the resources for that, it's not a problem. And all of the components inside the forge will just drop out in a little bag on the floor. So it'll save you lots of time in smelting. But that's it for this one. I hope you found this video interesting. If you do want to stay up to date with the latest things on the channel, then feel free to join me on Discord. I'll leave a link to that in a pinned comment below. Also, if you've got any tips that you'd like to share, then feel free to share them. Thanks again for watching, it's greatly appreciated, and hopefully I'll catch you in the next video.